Hello, welcome to another Tweedy Outdoors adventure slash video. I don't want to oversell it too early on. I'm in the vicinity of Avebury today. I've got off the bus from Swindon a couple of stops early at the village of Winterbourne, Monkton. I'm going to walk from here to Windmill Hill. I'm in the vicinity of Avebury for about 24 hours for the Autumn Equinox. I think the moment of equinox is around about dawn tomorrow morning, so I think that's when the I assume sunrise tomorrow, Saturday, will be the main celebration. But in the meantime, I have the rest of the afternoon today. It's only really just gone lunchtime. I have the rest of the afternoon on this slightly wet, grey day in the Avebury area to explore. I would like to go see Windmill Hill, as I just mentioned, and Swallowhead Springs. Sort of the question I'm trying to answer on this visit, which I obviously won't come up with a satisfactory answer, but why is Avebury here and not somewhere else? Why not 10 miles up the road, 10 miles down the road? Why did they choose this spot? Windmill Hill. Very dramatic sky today, and it's almost as though the clouds over there have formed a sort of natural arena around the summit of Windmill Hill. It's a little bit difficult to get a sense of this site from the ground here. This is one of those times where it probably really would help to have a drone. I'm sure you can find other videos on YouTube with aerial drone footage of Windmill Hill. This seems to be the highest point of all the earthworks atop Windmill Hill, so you can get a little bit of a sense of the structure of the site from here. Excavations here suggest that the earliest earthworks on Windmill Hill date back to 3800 BC, so that's getting on for 6,000 years ago, and it's likely getting on for 1,000 years before the earliest earthworks in the main site at Avebury. I think that's typically dated to around 3000 BC, when the first phases of Avebury's, I think it was the cove before, later on the henges, and finally the stone circles. So getting on for a millennium before that, at least 800 years, there were people here on Windmill Hill. They created, again, difficult to get a sense of it from ground level, they created a causewayed enclosure, and that's not what we're standing on right now. I believe what we're standing on here is a later, probably Bronze Age barrow. So I think this ditch that I'm currently standing in would have been part of the original 3800 BC circa causewayed enclosure, which I think more or less amounts to a large ring-shaped ditch, a circular or almost circular ditch. And the causeways, if we spin you around over here, the causeways refer to the sort of entrances across the ditch. It's possibly what we have in this slightly raised up bit here, where it appears the ditch is briefly interrupted. Confusing because there's what's likely a later barrow over there also in the way, but I think where I'm standing now, this would have been a causeway, down there more ditch. Of course, as always with Neolithic sites, there is much debate and uncertainty over its use. It's possibly something used for corralling livestock, and the ditches may have been more to do with keeping wild animals out rather than necessarily keeping human invaders out. It's not a very significant fortification, so I think the consensus amongst many archaeologists is that it's less likely to be a fortification. More likely some other use. So this was here 800 years prior to the developments, as far as we know, in Avebury proper. It's about a mile away, but at some point the inhabitants of Windmill Hill, we believe, were the people who would have constructed the early phases of Avebury. At some point they decided this ring-shaped ditch wasn't enough for them, and they not only decided to go down to Avebury to build something a lot more elaborate, but they moved. I think that's the interesting part. Why not site the stone circle and the henge here on top of Windmill Hill? And moreover, why was the causewayed enclosure built on the top of Windmill Hill rather than one of the other surrounding hills or any other site in the first place? Well, I fear there is too much hopeless procrastination there at Windmill Hill, and it's unlikely we're going to find any conclusive answers anytime soon, or indeed ever. So I'm going to head on from here, walk down into Avebury, sort of survey how things are doing in the warm-up to the eve of the equinox, and then hopefully, if there's time from there, head on to Swallowhead Springs. Walking down a track now which will take me most of the way into Avebury. Just wanted to pause and appreciate the clouds. And there we go, Avebury. We will take a look at the stones obviously in a bit, but first the National Trust shop before it closes. I told you it was an adventure. I've just been to the National Trust shop, bought some postcards and some stamps. Good to know they sell stamps. Cheers from the Red Line in Avebury. I've got some postcards to write. I want to get them in before the last post goes. Now I'm going to take a look at the stones and then hopefully head down to Swallowhead Springs. Their appeal never wanes for me. There's always different lights to see them in, different skies behind them, different mix of people. Pretty quiet here at the moment. I don't know if much happens on the eve of the autumn equinox. I imagine the main celebrations will be tomorrow morning, but you know, from previous equinoxes it's quite often just 10-20 people that show up. I'm of course on the West Kennet Avenue now, taking a walk down here towards Waden Hill. Look at that beautiful rainbow. I love West Kennet Avenue. Somehow it has this real sense of magic to it that if anything, I think I like it even more. Is this sacrilegious to say I like it even more than the main stone circles at Avebury? There, I said it. I prefer the avenue. If this were all that Avebury was, I would still come back every time. I think it's just something really spectacular about the way it winds over the landscape here, despite the road by it and the car noise. And these huge skies. It's just got absolutely bags of atmosphere. Atavism. This would be a great place to have that Greg's sausage roll, but I'm going to press on to Swallowhead Springs. Okay, well, I say I'm heading to Swallowhead Springs, but I somehow suddenly can't resist the diversion to Falkner's Circle. And here we are, I believe. I think I had read about this before, and there is probably only this one stone still remaining in place. A smaller stone, possibly, not sure if that was part of the monument, but there we go, a solitary stone by the side of this cornfield, maize field. The only remnant of Falkner's Circle. It's kind of evocative in its own little way. It was a short diversion, and I think it was worth it for that one sole standing stone. I remember spotting this hawthorn tree before on a walk up Waden Hill, which I'm probably mispronouncing. Had all these ribbons tied to it. I wonder what the significance of this particular tree was. Why this one and not the couple down there. I also remember from a previous video walking at Waden Hill here, you get to the brow and then suddenly Silbury Hill looms into view, shooting into the sun of course as well. Probably barely see anything. Walking along the A4 now, and this must be another one of those permissive footpaths. Yes, indeed it is, which lets you get a bit closer to Silbury Hill. I don't think you can actually get right onto it, but this is closer than I've ever managed before. So that's great, that little permissive footpath there lets you get quite a lot closer to the base of Silbury Hill. I believe the I can just about see off in the distance there. There's something that looks like a no entry sign. I'm pretty sure the hill itself is inaccessible, otherwise it would be covered in people standing on the top admiring the view. I think it's structurally not very sound or something, so this is as close as we can get, I believe. But that's great. I'm really pleased with that. Much closer than I've ever been before. Largest man-made mound in Europe, and the date is somewhere around 2400 BC. Try not to obscure it here. So making this lump behind me 4,400 years old. Incredible. This is what I missed on previous visits, not particularly well signposted, just here off the A4, near that little lay-by where you'd go to see Silbury Hill. Thank you to, I think, Allotment Fox, possibly had a chat with him at one point about where the access to Swallowhead Springs was. And I believe we'll just follow the line of the fence pretty much. Hopefully that will get us to Swallowhead Springs. Finally then, Swallowhead Springs. Seem to have arrived at Swallowhead at a rather special moment. The sun's sort of an hour and a half or so from setting, starting to hang relatively low in the sky. Probably can't see in the distance. Over in the other direction, a rainbow. Pretty magical. Lovely glinting light of the sun behind me. I don't know if you can catch that. This is the source of the River Kennet. I suppose we've had a dry summer on and off, so can't really see a babbling brook here. Barely any running water to be seen at all, but there is this rather impressive display. So yes, my reason for wanting to come to Swallowhead Springs is that I think it has been suggested that the location of this spring could be one of the reasons that Avebury is where it is. Of course, if we stray into high WC21 Productions UK Limited, but if we stray into the sort of Francis Pryor and Chum's school of thought, then the River Kennet was likely a sacred river in the same way that the River Avon around Stonehenge was believed by some archaeologists to have been considered sacred. Of course, we have no real evidence that the people of the Neolithic era looked on it in those ways. And of course, these were early farming communities. This was the birth of agriculture in Great Britain. And a water source is somewhat important to agriculture. So they may have then built on top of that some kind of more higher level spiritual worship of the river, because it literally gave life in terms of helping to water the fields and provide water for the livestock and provide water for the people. But there could have been, a much more simplistic explanation for why these centres, these monuments were built close to these springs of these seemingly significant rivers. I'm going to sit here and ponder these ancient mysteries while I eat my sausage roll from Greg's in Swindon I bought earlier. They're nicer when they're warm. So there we are, Swallowhead Springs. A really evocative spot. I wasn't originally going to, but I've decided while I'm in the neighbourhood I should come and pay my respects on this eve of the Autumn Equinox to West Kennet Long Barrow. And it's always nice to see it around, well, still about an hour until sunset, but the sun is starting to head down in the sky over there. This may once again provide answers that we don't yet have to why Avebury is where it is, because this also predates the main Avebury site by several hundred years. 3600 BC, so a good 600 years before we believe the first phase of construction at Avebury, and probably a whole millennium before the final stone circle construction at Avebury. this was already here. I have featured this in a video before, but let's now we're here, let's take another look inside. I remember from previous visits that we do need some artificial lighting to really do this justice, so excuse me for ruining the atmosphere. It's quite a strong smell of some kind of incense. All of these chambers would have at one time contained bones that have occasionally been brought out potentially and rearranged and put back. The Francis Prior and Chapman would of course have said this was to do with some kind of ritual ancestor worship. And I suppose when it comes to how you bury and preserve your ancestors, the bodies of your ancestors, then it's hard to say that there isn't at least some element of belief and ritual in that behaviour, those customs. Very evocative spot though. To be honest, I would say on this occasion I'm actually finding it a bit creepy. I don't think I had before, but today sort of ever so slightly brooding, sort of menacing air to it. There we go, West Kennet Long Barrow. Beautiful light now. Love the colour of the sky. Light going slightly silvery. Heading up to the Ridgeway now, as the sun is starting to think about setting. I think I've still got a good half hour and half an hour or so before the sun actually sets, but looking like it might be a nice one. The sky's clearing a bit over there, which is good. Coming up to some of the barrows that run along the Ridgeway here, and I think some of these are referred to as the hedgehogs. Look a bit like hedgehogs from further down the hill. The pretty evocative, steep, quite tall as barrows go, as they often seem to be covered in beech trees. Sometimes it's Scots pines, isn't it? Nice. You can see at least a handful of vans lined up along the Ridgeway there. On the Ridgeway now, I've been treated to a lovely sort of pre-sunset half an hour or so. I think it's in danger of going behind a cloud now over there, so but still lovely silvery golden rays coming out of it right now, and really quite a pleasant evening considering we're in the latter half of September, while the autumn equinox. Really lovely. Well, it looks like my favourite old time spot is actually available. I'm at the summer solstice, so here it is, my old favourite hedgerow. Still nice and clear ground, a couple of twigs to push out the way, but that's not too much of a problem. Right, I'm just going to be bold and set my tent up before it's actually completely dark, because we're moments away from sunset. It's a tiny bit hidden. I don't think many people are going to come past now, and it's probably just fine. So if you want some boring tent setup footage, here we go. the finished article. Reasonably pleased with that pitch. So I think the official moment of sunset has passed now. Still a nice bit of orangey glow in the sky over there. Oh, I hate putting the light on. Always completely kills the mood. Could probably just about get away without it, but horrible light in my eyes. But tonight's dinner, I don't know where I get these weird ideas from, but I was racking my brains yesterday trying to think what to cook, and the thing that somehow floated into my culinary consciousness, what are you talking about, Tweedy, was gnocchi alla Sorrentina, which is that gnocchi dish where it's in a sort of tomatoey sauce, and then you put mozzarella on the top and bake it. Now, of course, you may be asking, if you've seen my stupid channel before, you won't be asking this, but you know, if you are new here, you'll be asking, well, how are you going to bake something in with just a basic camp stove setup? But you know, that's where the blowtorch will come in. So it won't really be baked as such, but it will be kind of grilled, flamed, I don't know, bruleed on top. The flapping's getting a bit annoying, isn't it? Perhaps the first thing I will do is make a start on the tomato sauce. A pretty simple sort of tomato sauce. It really ideally should have basil in it, but I couldn't find any basil that wasn't from Kenya. I just find the idea of shipping a couple of leaves of basil all the way from Kenya a bit ridiculous. So sticking to just olive oil, garlic and cherry tomatoes. Silly little table doesn't want to stay very flat at the moment. Great footage. The usual little jar of olive oil there. I'll be quite generous with that. My can of cherry tomatoes can go in next. Oh, I think I've already let that garlic cook too much. Did I actually get cherry tomatoes? I don't think that needs particularly long. Put that to one side. On with the billy. Put in some water. Have a feeling I'm not going to be able to get all of that gnocchi in here. It does say serves two on here, so probably only need about half of it. I think that is as much as we're going to get in. Is there time for a quick bit of wine chat? I've brought along with me today something a bit special. I think I've said that before and realised I brought the wrong bottle. But I think this is the correct one this time. It's Domaine Ferrier's Gevrey Chambertin, the 2011, which was the first vintage I ever had of this. And this is the vintage that kind of made me realise what an incredible producer Domaine Ferrier is. Right, I think that's pretty much done. The gnocchi, drain that, and that can go in with the can you see? There we go. Mix that in. That tomatoey sauce, just a gentle stir around. I don't really want to break up the those cherry tomatoes too much, so I'm going to quickly chop up this mozzarella. That also needs a bit of draining. You could just do this by hand, really. It's doesn't need to be chopped in any particular shape. And then back over here, Clive. Right, let's position that roughly on top. You absolutely could just call that a day at that point. It'll probably taste quite nice, but got the blowtorch. Okay, I think I've grown a bit impatient with the blowtorching now. I'm going to just declare that as done. There we go, gnocchi alla Sorrentina, minus the basil. Cooked in a hedge on the eve of the autumn equinox. I do very much want to get on and eat that before it gets cold, but I'd also quite like to have a glass of wine with dinner. So let's open up this cult producer, Jean-Marie Fourier. Probably needs a little bit of time to open up. A little bit shy initially, a bit austere even possibly. Lovely on the palate though. It's sort of, I don't know, dainty, elegant. Ethereal is a word I've heard used about Domaine Fourier before. But I don't have time for poncy wine talk. I want to get on and eat my dinner. Gnocchi alla Sorrentina. That has quite enough flavour as it is. Very nice. Cheers. And a little bit of tidying up. That's the current state of home for the night. I've just been having a little fire just as a morale boost. It's you know, off the ground, very contained, very small, in the little is this called the honey stove? I forget. Haven't used this for a while, but provides just a little bit of warmth. And you know, it got dark an hour and a half ago, and there was a temptation not long after that, once I'd finished eating, to just go and hide inside the tent. And this time of year, you know, with sunset around 7 p.m, it really makes a difference to morale, having just a very, very, very tiny, safe, contained fire. Managed to eke out sitting outside somewhat longer. I wonder what the temperature is now. The forecast says it's about 12 degrees, so you know, I suppose that's can reasonably be considered as a bit chilly. The time is just after 10 o'clock, so I suppose that's not an unreasonable time to turn in for the night. Time to retreat into the tent and go to sleep, hopefully, and hopefully actually wake up at 5 something so I can pack up all this tat and get back to Avebury and go and see the sunrise if there's anything to see of it. So I shall say good night for now, and I'll see you in the morning. Hideous lighting. It is it's 5:30 a.m. Good morning. I set myself an alarm because I know from experience that if I just wait until I naturally wake up, then I'll end up missing the sunrise. So I now have the unenviable task of packing up the tent and so on. As always, not a great night's sleep, but I was really starting to get into a bit of a rhythm about sort of half an hour ago, which is a shame. I was actually starting to get some decent sleep by about 5 a.m. But that's quite often the way of these things, so never mind. Hashtag leave no trace. You would not know I have been here, other than a few misplaced twigs. It's just gone 6 a.m, so I think pack up took about half an hour. I have done better than that in the past, but that should give me plenty of time. I think it's about a 40-minute walk from here into the centre of Avebury. I hope there is enough light there for the GoPro to pick that up. I think it's doing okay. Those are the first glimmers of first light over there. You can still see a star or two in the sky there. That's nice. Dare I even try panning? Over in the distance is Fifield Down, and I don't know if the GoPro is picking it up, but there's some lovely silhouetted trees on the horizon there. I suppose I should have included that in part of the discussion about why is Avebury where it is, because of course that's where the stones, the sarsen stones that we used to build the stone circles that Avebury came from. Beautiful morning sky. Wondered if we have enough light yet for pointing at me while walking along. Probably not quite. The hedge path in the pre-dawn light. I have reached the henge at Avebury. There's a little bit of mist trapped in the ditch over there. I've got about 15 minutes until the official moment of sunrise. I think I'm going to get up on the usual embankment over there and see what there is to see. Just over 10 minutes to go. That's what it's looking like right now. Decided to set up shop here on the embankment. Watch the drama unfold, if there is any drama from here. I hope the time lapse and all some of the phone footage there captured at least a bit of the magic. That was a particularly moving, very special sunrise. One of the nicest I've seen at Avebury. Really magical. Stunning light this morning. The stones all seem a different colour today and yesterday. I noticed a lot sort of paler, whiter than usual. Quite the usual sarsen grey. Almost looking ever so slightly chalky. Okay, well, I think the time has come to say goodbye. Am I in silhouette there with the sun over my shoulder? That's been a fantastic trip. That worked really well. I got to see a lot of interesting sights around the wider Avebury area yesterday, some of which I hadn't seen before. The camp went pretty well. Obviously didn't really sleep that much, I never seem to, but and to top it off, this beautiful, magical, very moving sunrise here at Avebury this morning. So I hope some of that was entertaining or uplifting, perhaps even. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.